Meeting will come to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the January the 5th, 2026 meeting of the Caswell County Commissioners. If you would join me in a moment of silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right, the consent agenda, which consists of tonight's meeting agenda, along with the minutes from December the 15th. Any corrections or additions to the minutes? Do I have a motion for consent agenda be approved?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Smith. Second from Commissioner Ingram. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Announcements and recognitions. I'll start with you, Commissioner Claggett.
Yes, I'd like to commend Deputy Manager Melissa Williamson and Human Resources Director Crystal Stauffer for our Employee Awards Luncheon. They recognize, as I do, that personal recognition is very important. Secondly, I'd like to remind everyone that there's a Veterans Breakfast Wednesday, January 28th at 9 p.m. a.m. at the Senior Center, open to all veterans. No group affiliation is required.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Ingram?
No.
Commissioner Rose?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, I just would like to send the condolences out to the family of Tanya Wingate, one of our employees, on the loss of her father. Just ask you keep her in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Yes, sir. I'd just like to recognize the town of Milton, who just recently received a grant from the Southeast Crescent Commission for $700,000 for water improvements.
All right, Commissioner Todd?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Holt? I'm going to step out of my comfort zone for just a moment. I'd like to recognize President Trump and his administration, along with members of military and other agencies that were involved in the capture and arrest of Nicolas Maduro over the weekend. I truly believe that this individual is a bad actor and has brought untold harm on the citizens of this country through drugs and you name it. I believe he was involved in it. I want to recognize that group. All right, public comments. Mr. Whitaker.
Mr. Chair, we have none signed up this evening.
All right. Thank you. Gentlemen, you have the financial report provided to you. Any questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I do have a question pertaining to the school funds, the capital funds. I see where there have been zero disbursements recognized. Is there a reason for that, or we just running behind, or they've not asked for anything, or where's it stand?
We've been talking about that. So we have our finance officer here. Can you address that this evening? And if you could point him to the specific place that you're speaking of in the report.
Well, I'll need to find it. Okay, it's under the school capital reserve fund. I think we allocated $888,000.
Yes,
Page.
yeah, so the November education variance was driven by how a purchase order was encumbered in the Munis system. So when the PO was created, we initially encumbered the full amount, and one payment was processed without being tied back to that PO. The combination made the monthly report show a temporary variance. So since then, finance has aligned the encumbrance to match the invoice, and the remaining amount left to pay. So that variance will clear on the next monthly reporting and does not reflect any kind of non-disbursement or over expenditure.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. You also have, looking at item 8, building permits report. I believe this is for the first 6 months of this fiscal year, if I read that right, from July 1 to.
July 1 through the end of December.
And this is a dollar amount of the value of those permits. Am I reading that right, Mr. Whitaker?
Project cost over on the right-hand column.
Gotcha. All right, yep. Okay, any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question. I saw in a couple of cases where you've got 2 entries for the same amount with different permit numbers. Is that a duplication, you think, or is that like a 2-part project?
Yeah, I had not seen that. Let me see if I can spot that real fast and.
It's permit number 6411 and 6412.
Should be the 298,000 on page 25.
I see that. I'll have to get back with you on that. I'm not certain if that's a duplication or what's going on there.
Well, I really like this report. I mean, it tells us a lot about what the county's doing as far as future revenues. And like I said, we're taking in $29 million for the first 6 months. I think that's fantastic.
Any other questions? All right, moving on to item 9, economic development updates. Mr. Bowman, I see you are here with us. Do you have anything to add?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions from the board or economic developer since he is with us tonight? All right. 2025 year in review presentation, Mr. Manager.
Okay, this has been mailed out to a lot of folks. It was on our Facebook page, and I'll be quick going over it. There's nothing magical about how these items got selected. We just staff talked internally, and these were some of the brief highlights. I think there's maybe 16 bullets total. And just for the record, I thought it would be good just to hit those quickly. Broadband improvements throughout Caswell. Our audits are current through 24. It's the first time since 2020, even though, of course, we're still working on the 25. Key staff positions filled or restructured, which has been critical to our operations. School system investments and supplements this year in the budget. And of course, that's a very tight budget, but the board did make a way to make some of those investments. Of course, Cherokee Tobacco that we've talked about, that building's under construction, under roof now, and looking really good. And included a quote here from our chair, just about the strides in 2025. Some of those other bulleted items, and again, not trying to take credit the county or this board for all of these items. They're just some good things that happen, but a lot of these items are directly the result of planning and decisions that this board has made. And one of those is New Pelham Fire Department, for instance, was dedicated. The new firing range for the sheriff's office, grant for laptops and training for citizens. The Leadership Academy, training for directors, that hasn't got a lot of discussion, but that was an effort of my predecessor and the administration here, and I think that has been successful. our new EMS ambulance, new safety committee, and workplace-related initiatives. I'll be talking more about that this evening. Again, kind of things that don't get a lot of attention, but the new boat shed and dock and safety improvements out at Farmer Lake, strategic funding efforts related to opioids, prevention, treatment, recovery, multiple, as you saw in the last board meeting, multiple parks and rec grants, youth football, volleyball, playground equipment, new cooperative extension storage building to store this equipment that you see that's for residents to use, that's behind this building, the courthouse. And then updated the comprehensive plan, and which includes a new land use plan that I've reported the first steering committee happened, and we're working on that next meeting. And again, nothing magical about the selection of these items. Just wanted to put that out there to show the good work that the board has been doing and its staff has been doing this year. And I'd like to thank you, board, for making a lot of this possible. And unless you have any questions about that, that's all I have for that topic.
Question? Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Item 12, Safety and Health Manual. Ms. Williamson.
Good evening, Commissioners. First, I would like to recognize some of the safety members who are here tonight, myself being the chair, Kenneth Everett, the vice chair, Crystal Stauffer, secretary, Clayton Myers with the Sheriff's Department, AJ Fuqua with Solid Waste, and John Yarbrough with EMS. I appreciate you all being here in support of the Safety and Health Manual tonight. You received in your packet a copy of the Safety and Health Manual, and we're requesting the adoption of the Castle County Safety and Health Manual. It's a comprehensive and countywide safety program developed to strengthen compliance with OSHA standards, reduce workplace hazards, and promote a strong culture of safety across all county departments. This manual was developed following recent North Carolina OSHA inspections and reflects best practices for public sector safety programs. It establishes clear roles, responsibilities, procedures, and expectations for elected officials, management, supervisors, employees, and contractors. Just for your information, we did look at other policies in other local government before we started making changes to ours. And our manual needed a complete overhaul because it was so outdated. So we did put a lot of work into this. And as you could see, some of the names that I've called out, we had a lot of public safety input from the department heads that we had on the committee to be able to make sure we're not missing any safety items that we really need to pay attention to. So I'm not going to read because you've had the policy to look at it, but I would like to go over some of the key components of the manual that it includes in policy and governance. We have a formal county safety and health policy, legal authority and OSHA compliance framework, defined roles for the Board of Commissioners, county manager, safety committee, department heads, and employees. Countywide safety organization, reestablishment of a county safety committee, department level safety programs, regular meetings, reporting, and communication protocols, general safety and work practices. We have PPE requirements, office facility, vehicle equipment, and ground safety, fire life safety, and electrical safety standards. Training and orientation, new employee safety orientation, job-specific and annual refresher training documentation, and supervisor accountability. The safety committee is going to complete a 10 or 30-hour general industry training before we go out to departments and do inspections, because I feel like our committee needs to be trained before we go out and tell somebody else what they need to improve on. So we're in the process of getting that training underway for the month of January. Emergency action and response, fire evacuation, severe weather, medical emergencies, lockdown, shelter in place, and security threats, Department Pacific emergency contact requirements. Then we also have health and environmental safety programs, hazard communication, bloodborne pathogens, lockout, tag out, confined space, fall protection, heat, cold, stress, environmental protection, workplace conduct and prevention. We have workplace violence prevention, drug-free workplace, harassment and discrimination, incident reporting and investigations, accident, injury, and near miss reporting, workers' compensation procedures, root cause analysis and corrective action tracking, OSHA record keeping and requirements, inspections and hazard control, department and county-wide safety inspections, hazard identification and abatement, safety audit and compliance reviews, and also we have wellness and continuous improvement, employee wellness and mental health resources, annual safety program evaluation, performance metrics, and continuous improvement. So upon adoption, the Safety and Health Manual will serve as the official safety standard for Caswell County. All employees will be required to acknowledge and comply with the manual. This action supports employee safety, regulatory compliance, risk reduction, and long-term organizational accountability. So that's just a broad overview of every topic that's pretty much included in our safety policy. And I know tonight, you can either choose to, before we get to the questions that you may have, you can either choose to adopt it tonight, or you can just have it as a discussion item and adopt it at the next meeting. But just to let you know, tomorrow we do go to Winston-Salem for our informal conference meeting with OSHA. So if we wanted to say that we had already, formally adopted it, we would be able to do that if the board chooses. If not, we can let them know that's what we anticipate to do at our next meeting. Do you all have any questions? And like I said, I have the safety committee here as well. This was a collaborative effort of all of us, and a lot of work was put into this. So we all are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? Mr. Flagg?
Yes, I believe that this is long overdue and going to be very well received. And with the schedule, like tomorrow, this policy was completed weeks ago. The recent OSHA findings were released weeks ago. If the county has OSHA's public information, why the ongoing delay in releasing that information, that available information to the citizens? It's addressed in section 9.6 of this already prepared document. Secondly, is the county's new ambulance out of the body shop and back in service?
I don't have an answer if it's back yet, but maybe someone else does. It is not yet. So probably later January.
I'm sorry, what?
Probably later January. They had said about 30 days and right before Christmas.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Williamson and members of the committee, thank y'all for the hard work, dedication put into this policy. One question I do have on page 7, under record retention, where it says employee medical and exposure records, duration of employment plus 30 years. Is that are you maintaining those records just on an exposure?
It's for exposure.
Okay. All right. That was the only question I had on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Ms. Stodden?
Ms. Williams, if I understand correctly, this is the first safety health manual?
It's not our first. We had one that I think maybe was like in the 90s. That's the last formally adopted one. I know that the safety committee had worked prior years before COVID. We're working on another one, but it was never formally brought to the board and adopted.
Did OSHA cite us on that?
They did not.
Okay,
No,
that's what-
they did
okay.
not. We just think it would be really good to show that, we have
Right.
updated our policy and our boards adopted it.
And thank you and your group for good work on that.
Thank you.
That's pretty good.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd just like to thank the safety committee for the numerous hours you put in this professional presentation.
Thank you.
Mr. Attorney, have you had a chance to look over this?
Yes, sir. And in reconciling the North Carolina OSHA Act and General Statute 95-126, this manual is in compliance and is very detailed and is also approved under the Workers' Compensation Act and the North Carolina Administrative Code 13 NCAC 07A-07F. So the committee did a great job.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm gonna make a motion that we adopt the safety and health manual as presented.
Have a motion from Commissioner Rose that we adopt the safety and health manual as presented. Second from Mr. Holt. Any discussion?
I've been to right many of these meetings, and I wish I had them, but she's gonna need this. She gets there. Just putting it off is not gonna help.
Right. I agree.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? Not, we proceed to vote. All those in favor of adopting the safety and health manual, let it be known by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. And thank you, committee. All right. Item 12, vacation leave, use and reporting, policy interpretations. Again, Ms. Williams, and back to you.
We are requesting board guidance regarding the interpretation of the county's vacation leave policy as it applies to employees who change status from full-time to temporary part-time. The county's personnel policy currently states in section 9.3.2, vacation leave use reporting, under no circumstances shall an employee be paid, cashed out, or bought back for accumulated or unused vacation leave while still in the employment of the county. This language clearly prohibits vacation leave payouts for employees who remain employed by the county. However, the policy does not specifically address situations in which an employee change employment status from full-time to temporary part-time. And temporary part-time employees work 1,000 hours or less per year and do not receive benefits and do not accrue any type of leave, including vacation. So some of the issues to take into consideration, because a change in status does not constitute termination of employee, staff were seeking to clarify on the board's intent regarding how accumulated vacation leave should be handled when an employee transitions from full-time to temporary part-time status. I think when this policy was originally adopted back in 2018, your workforce was very different than it is now. You have more, especially in your public safety departments, because how it typically and how it used to work, you have employees, either they would resign and maybe come back later to work part-time, or they retired and came back later to work part-time, and that constituted, met the fulfillment of termination of employment. But now you have employees who are more inclined to leave a full-time due to higher paying jobs as they make it get full-time, but they know before they leave, because they like working here, that they still would like to stay on part-time. So just an example with that, I'm going to pick on EMS and use them as my example. If you had a paramedic who could go to Guilford County full-time because it could be closer to where they live and the income would be more, they may say, hey, I'm going to work in Guilford County, but I still like working here in Caswell County, and I want to remain on your part-time roster list as temporary part-time. So they already have the intent knowing that they want to stay. So this would save the county money by not just taking and just making the employee have to terminate in order to fulfill the requirement as it's read now to be able to get the vacation payout. Because if not, if they have to resign, as the policy says, if it's got to be termination, then they've got to come back and reapply with us, go through the hiring process again. And that means they'll have to have background checks done, drug tests done, and it will be a delay in them being able to, to fulfill that position that they may be in the medical field. And with EMS, a paramedic is a critical position for them. So it's not good that they would have that lag time there without being able to use an employee. So that's kind of where we're at, because we need to have a distinguish between, like, employees change from full-time to temporary part-time status. And it would save the county more money in being able to do that. And if we amend the county personnel policy to allow payout of accrued vacation leave when an employee transitions from full-time status to temporary part-time status, recognizing that temporary part-time employees working 1,000 hours or less per year, they do not accrue any vacation leave or receive any benefits. So if they go from full-time to part-time, they're not accruing any leave because they hit that temporary part-time status at that point. So they would accrue no leave, just the hours that they work. So under this option, the payout would occur only at the time of the status change, not during continued full-time employment. When the status change occurs, that effective date is when, the payout would occur. And the payout would be capped at a maximum of 240 hours, consistent with the existing vacation payout limit upon separation in the personnel policy. And the payout would be a one-time only for each qualifying status change, and the employee would remain ineligible for any future vacation accruals, which in temporary part-time status. So in order for us to be able to make this clearly and have our intent and be consistent, and if this is the option that the board chose to go with, we would need to formally amend the personnel policy. So basically, in a nutshell, our policy, the way it reads now, if someone's status is the only thing that changes, if they went from full-time, and just say if you had a full-timer that had 200 hours of vacation, most employees are not going to, if they say they want to stay part-time, as the policy currently reads, they're not going to want to wait till they stop working part-time to ever get their payout. What they're going to do is just go ahead and still resign and go through the rehire process. And you may deter some from wanting to go through all that process again, and you could lose some really valuable public safety workers. And it would save the county money, because we automatically, with termination of employment, always pay their vacation leave out. But it's just because the way our policy is written. And like I said, I think at that time, the workforce, didn't kind of foresee how people could, or kind of only in a nutshell, kind of chasing the dollar, that would be an issue. But when you just do a status change, we're not allowed to pay them out.
Right? Comments and questions concerning this? Yes, sir.
So What's most fair for the employee?
The most fair, I mean, because if someone separates from us and goes to work somewhere else, and they don't go ahead and tell us up front they're going to work with us part-time, they're going to go ahead and get paid out. If someone retires, they're going to go ahead and get paid out their vacation as well, and they come back and work for us. This right here just kind of saves that extra step of having to come back and reapply, because they know they already have the intent and they already know that they want to, stay on with us. But that's just considered, a status change. It's not considered a termination. So as our policy currently reads, we wouldn't be able to pay them out if they chose to go that way until they just completely no longer work with the county at all.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
part-time employees are very valuable to the county. I mean, they're trained, they're qualified, they fill in gaps. I think we need to do everything we can to hold on to our part-time people.
I agree, especially in some of these critical roles.
Yeah, particularly, I mean, they go part-time, they're needing the money because they've got less income. So
Right.
I think we should, I think we should make a change in that policy.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Basically, Ms. Williamson, at the end of the day, this is their time. They've accrued it. It's
Exactly.
theirs. Whether they get paid out up front and go to a part-time status or
Correct.
they resign, it's still their money.
Exactly.
I do understand what you mean about the, starting the whole process over, because I think if you're out so many days and you reapply, you got to
Right.
start it all over. And I guess the one example I could use, and I guess I will use it with EMS, but I will use it from a female aspect. If you had a full-time female employee who decided she wanted to start having a family, and she said, well, I can't do full-time, but I can do part-time. And she's got 100 hours of vacation stored up.
Right.
It is her money. So I appreciate you looking at it from a cost-saving measure also. Thank you.
Any other comments? Ms. Williamson, let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. Let's say we've got a EMT that has worked, that got their 30 years in.
Right.
But they still want to work some, but they don't want to be a full-time employee anymore. Well, the only way they can get their vacation time now, the way the policy is they have to go ahead and say, I'm retired.
They would have to retire. And how we look at it in the HR payroll world, a pink sheet stands for termination. Orange sheet is for change in your status. Okay, so the difference would be from having to do a pink sheet showing they're completely terminated, then turning around and putting them through the hiring process again, and then we would do a green sheet where payroll has to reactivate them. They have to get them back, in the system and everything going again, to where this right here would just allow us to just simply do an orange sheet, which is just a change in status. They remain active in the system, and then they're able to, it just is an easier flow process. I just think, like I said, when this policy was written, you just didn't see that occurring as much as
So
you do
the
now.
way the policy is now, if that same EMT says, I'm retiring, but I just want to change my status, go to part-time.
Well, if they're,
But wait a minute, that person would just not be able to get paid on their
Right.
free
Right.
time, right?
right, if they're retiring, they would meet the requirement for termination. That's like, it's not like they're being fired, but that's how we look at it. It's considered termination. Their employment is terminating as full time. So they would meet the policy requirement, someone that's retiring or someone that leaves and then comes back later. This is just specifically for someone who knows they want to remain on our roster, but they're not eligible for retirement. They're not ready to retire, but they know they want to stay with us, and it's just a change in their status, but they're going to another county where they can work full time, and possibly could be closer to where they live, or they may get better rate of pay, but they know they want to stay with us part-time. And instead of just going through all those steps through payroll and HR again, you could simply just do a simple change sheet or orange sheets, just changing their status. But the way that currently the policy reads, we wouldn't be able to pay them out till they were no longer working for the county, period, anymore.
Am I correct in saying that a part-time employee, all they receive is compensation? They don't receive V time, sick time,
No.
nothing like that?
A temporary part-time employee, and this is what they would be identified as, does not receive any benefits and accrues no leave.
Okay. All right.
And that would be what they would be, their status would change to temporary part-time.
And since they are temporary part-time, even if the policy wasn't changed, they wouldn't be using vacation.
No, because no longer can they use it.
Okay.
Their sick leave would automatically just either stay kind of in the, a lot of what counties do, if you're with a local government, if they go to another local government, they will accept sick. Nobody accepts vacation from each other because it's always paid out.
Right.
So they wouldn't be able to use it at a later time. They would be paid completely out for it. And if they were, for whatever reason, to come back to the county to a full-time status, they would be completely starting over. They would be starting from zero, for vacation.
Any other questions?
Yes, I just want to ask Ms. Williamson, so in the sense of a person leaving from the full-time status to go somewhere else to work in another full-time status, but want to work here part-time, as of right now, what I would call it is a separation allowance if they leave here. So that's what we're saying, that they're not getting that separation allowance.
Exactly. They're being made to wait until they no longer work for the county, period. And most employees are not going to do that. I know me personally, what I would do, I would just go ahead and resign and get my payout, and then I would reapply. But that is going to cost the county more money to do it that way, because then you got to go through the process again, and it'll delay when they're able to get back on board in that department, because they got to go through this process again.
Okay, so the moment that they actually leave, they should be actually getting a separation
Right.
allowance, because anything you have other than full-time.
Right.
Okay.
Because for any other reason that you were to leave, you're paid out. It's just that one
Right.
stipulation. But like I said, I think it just really has a lot to do with the change in the workforce
True.
from when this policy was written.
So that one line that says, under no circumstances shall an employee be paid or cashed out or for accumulated or unused vacation. That's what's problematic, because,
They're still employed.
and I believe we have paid, we have in the recent past paid out some of those without maybe the strictest interpretation of this line, and came to our attention. We thought, well, that isn't fully clear, and we want to have board clarity on that before we continue that, or before we deny anyone the payout in that situation.
To me, it's the fairest to the employee, and the fact that they still want to work with us.
Gentlemen, what's the pleasure? Do you want to act on this tonight? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
I approve. We'll need a little more
All right,
detail.
make a motion to, I guess, adopt the new revised policy concerning employee payout for vacation time in the event that an employee moves from full-time to part-time status.
Can I just get you on that to just, to put in temporary part-time, and that the leave will not exceed the 240 hours that's in the policy?
Good with that? You good with that?
I'm good with that.
Okay. All right. I have a motion from Commissioner Rose. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Smith. Any more discussion?
I just want to add, we didn't propose any specific language because we wanted to have this discussion and see where you wanted to go with it first. But if you're ready to move, then that's your prerogative.
Hearing no discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williamson. All right, Commissioners, 2026 Board and Committee Assignments. Mr. Whitaker.
So commissioners, are on various boards and committees, obviously, and that's what you have as an attachment. You have this breakdown for each commissioner, and I'll be glad to turn that around when we get to it. But the reason that we have this on the agenda is just for a conversation about your assignments. It's really, since I've been here, only came up once. There was a conversation several months ago that came up related to different commissioners or commissioners being on different boards and committees. And for instance, in some capacity, depending on the board and that position on that board, you had voting privileges, others was ex officio positions and you didn't. And I had sent you a follow-up email that told each of you what boards and committees you were on. And I know that schedules change. This board's had a lot of changes since last January, which is going back through the minutes the last time that the board really assessed who was on what committee. And so I thought it would be a good time to put it before you in case schedules have changed or anything's happened and you wish to maybe reevaluate who's on what committee or board. And I'm glad to put that on the screen for you.
Mr. Manager.
Yes.
I think mine has got some committees that are not showing on here that I think were on there prior to the ones that I deal with in Raleigh. Or is this just the local stuff?
Well, so with this, we went by the last list we had last January, then we compared that to our directory of all the committees and boards. Outside of the county-specific boards, there are also others that are related. For instance, PTRC, the Rural Planning Organization, different positions that are really external to the county, but certainly connected to you and that you serve on. So we may not have all of those. Again, we were relying on the directory, what we knew, and the last version of this that you're seeing on the screen. And also there were some on there that we removed. For instance, I had asked, maybe not at the board level, but internally, I'd asked some of you months ago about the cemetery committee that was on a document, I think from around 2016 or so, and was told that that committee is no longer active. And so that was an example of something that's been removed. So this was our best effort at compiling what you're serving on. And we'll be glad to add anything else that's incorrect or not sufficient.
I think it's two that's on the NCACC stuff that fell under me
Okay.
that are not showing on here.
Gentlemen, you see the committees listed beneath your names. My suggestion would be if there's somewhere that a committee that you're on that you don't want to serve on, get with the manager. Would that be the best route? Or you bring it back to us?
Well, it's a little interesting that because a lot of these, or the majority of these boards that are in committees, so boards, committees, councils, commissions, they're all the same as far as our policy and for this discussion. And with some of those positions, I just completely lost my train of thought. Well, it'll come back to me.
But I was just saying, if there are committees that a commissioner is listed on here that they don't have any real interest in serving on, should they let you
Yes.
know?
So, and my thought just, that senior moment just hit me.
It'll get worse, I can.
Came back. What I was going to say is the way the majority of these committees are set up, and it's per the Citizen Advisory Board policy, is for 3-year terms. That's not consistent across the board. So it's a little different in terms of looking at this annually with the board. And then that was my understanding that that has been looked at more on an annual basis. And so if you're not active on a committee, if you're not able to attend some of these meetings, it would be better for you to work that out as a reappointment, I think, to the boards. And we don't have to accomplish all of this tonight, but I wanted to put it before you as a discussion item so that if there's anything that you clearly want to change, we can go back to the policy and regroup on that. I mean, at the end of the day, the commissioners, the Board of Commissioners is the appointing authority to these boards and committees. And it's your call as to who serves where. So we could make those changes, although it is outside of really what's a more average 3-year term for most of them.
How active are some of these committees? Because I see that I'm on the Ag Advisory Committee. I've been on this board for going on 4 years, and as far as I know,
Right. It's, I will say it's a work in progress, and I'll give you an example. So the Hunting and Wildlife Advisory Committee, when I came this past spring, they had not met in probably a couple of years, and they had decided amongst themselves that unless there was something that the board, an issue that you put before them, they wouldn't meet. We kind of talked through their charge and that they needed to be, there was work to be done there. So that has been revived. By the same token, when I came, the library committee didn't have enough members to have a quorum. So that was that you have since appointed members, we've had applications. So now that is an active working committee. But to your point, there are some that still haven't been very active, and it's a matter of making sure they all have quorums and really just being proactive about it.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
your question. Are all of these all of the ones here are active? Are there some missing? Or let me put it this way, that have some been eliminated based on not meeting?
Well, like I said, the cemetery committee, I understood, had just, I don't know if it had been formally decommissioned, but it had gone away several years ago. So we removed that, just knowing that. And as far as at the staff level, we have not deactivated or decommissioned any, because the assumption is at some point, the board at the time felt the need for a committee, established a committee, and it had some level of activity. Now, to my earlier point, I think some of those have become less active or inactive, to your point. And that's probably due to change in leadership over the last couple of years. It hasn't helped that situation. So we're trying to get these back on a more consistent schedule, and trying to get at this level, what we're talking about with commissioners, trying to get you where you're interested in serving and helping and what fits your schedules. So that's really the purpose of the discussion today.
I'm going to ask Commissioner Rose and Commissioner Holt, because we all serve in the same amount of time. Didn't we, it's probably been 2 years ago, we talked about committees, and some of them we actually reduced the number of people that were serving on those committees. Am I remembering that correctly? Okay. Because some of them had a large, supposedly you had to have a large group for a full committee and we didn't have enough people to apply. That's what I was thinking. All right, gentlemen, we ain't gonna belabor this subject. Y'all look over this thing. And if it's, like I said earlier, if it's somewhere that you don't feel comfortable or it just doesn't work in your schedule, we'll hash it out either at the next meeting or first meeting in February. Will that
And
work?
if you can let me know, in the next week or so, then we can get it back before you.
Okay.
And one thing I meant to say earlier was, and this goes back to the point of, well, typically most of these positions, not the external, more regional that are often annual appointments, but your internal advisory commissions and boards are usually 3-year terms. And so I was curious how that played, with the board when you look at this more often than that. And there's nothing about it in the citizen advisory board policy. That's why it's not in your packet. And then there's nothing about it in the commissioner's rules of procedure that addresses these kind of appointments. So it's been a kind of organic thing that's happened over the years. Committees have been formed at the time commissioners were appointed, and it's just time for some assessment to let me know if there's anything that you need to change.
All right, good enough. Y'all give it some thought and consideration and get with the manager if it's something you want changed about the committees that you are assigned to. All right, item 14, Board of Commissioners retreat. Mr. Whitaker.
So you approved this date on your budget calendar at the 1st of December. January 24th is Saturday, and technically that will be a special called meeting that we'll notice separately from our regular noticed meetings. And the purpose of having this on the agenda is just really to see if you have any particular preferences or direction. Typically the whole goal of this retreat would be to talk about, from a strategic standpoint, priorities, goals for Caswell, come away with some objectives and very actionable items that we can pursue. And the reason it's on the budget calendar, while it's not specifically a budget meeting, it really sets the tone for early budget development. So we're going to have at the staff level this Wednesday, we're going to be talking about some initial steps with department heads about budget development. But from the board's standpoint, the idea is to come away from that Saturday understanding some core things that this board wants moving forward into not just this year, but again, it will help set the tone in a major way for budget development. And with that said, I have already reached out to the Commissioners Association and asked if Amy Cannon, who's very familiar, of course, with Caswell, and she is an outreach associate there, and of course, retired county manager. I have already asked if she would facilitate, and I think you should have some level of comfort as that was one of her shared responsibilities last year. And really what I'd like to know is just, again, anything specific that you would like to see or your expectations from that day. And that can be logistical or how the agenda is structured. So there is a date a few days earlier, January 21st, that we'll have a solidified agenda that'll be sent to you. And for instance, one of the things on our end that we were planning is, because it is a long day, just planning to do lunch, have that catered and brought in. And again, really just the opportunity this evening for you to give any input about that retreat.
All right, gentlemen, any input to help the manager out planning for the 24th?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would assume that, I don't sit on this, this list here, but I assume that we'll talk about the capital improvement budget and what type of items go on that. Have a little definitions to what you'd like to see in that.
Yes, so that'll be a portion of, of the agenda because as we said, we're going to be developing this capital improvement plan, the CIP, through the budget process, but we're going to wait and adopt it probably in September so we can get past the budget and then focus on finalizing that. But the core part of the development begins with this, with two things, really the CIP requests that we're asking for department heads to submit by a deadline, but a core part will be where do you want to go with those items? So yes.
Okay, well, that's good. I also would like to maybe get an idea as to how we will fund that. What is projected as far as funding that CIP plan?
Yes.
Any other questions or recommendations concerning the retreat on the 24th? We'll be at the library, correct? Library.
Yes, in the library.
If you have any suggestions in the next day or so, please get with the manager and let him know. All right. Purchasing policy, emergency purchases, Mr. Whitaker.
Okay, so we discussed this in detail at the last time, and I'd say there were two really important ideas or different directions or comments that the board discussed about it. Again, when we drafted this internally, we were doing it because we have no emergency purchases policy at the moment. And just to remind you, I think that was probably an oversight when the new purchasing policy was adopted about a year ago. And we referenced the previous emergency purchases policy, and that policy was structured so that department heads within certain boundaries could make emergency purchases. And it did not have any specific dollar amount limits. So the two big things you talked about at the last meeting was you, in general, that seemed the consensus was that you did not prefer department head approval. And so there was some discussion about in somewhat of a chain of command that come into the county manager, the deputy county manager, the board chair, and then the board vice chair. In that particular order. And maybe not quite a consensus, but there was some mention of a dollar amount. So what you see before you this evening, the substantive parts are blue. And so this is exactly the policy that you saw at the last meeting, except for these blue components. And then there's one other aspect. Attorney Johnson had some input and in terms of what he felt needed to be there in that first line. Emergency must be present, immediate, and existing, and not just anticipated to arise in the future. Does that cover that one item fully for you?
That does, Mr. Whitaker. Yes, sir. And Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is based upon case law, North Carolina case law. And the case law that directly addresses emergencies in local governments. The courts clearly define an emergency must be present, immediate, and existing, and cannot be a situation that is merely anticipated to arise in the future. So we felt like that language needed to be added to the policy. And another important note is that as soon as practicable, after the emergency, the board must pass a resolution giving the justification for the emergency purchase.
So that covers the legal improvements of this drafted policy. And again, back to the core of what you see on the screen that's blue is just memorializing what I felt like I heard as a consensus of an order, and also what you're not seeing there is what was removed from what you saw at the last one, which was department head approvals, and instead replaced with this order under B1, that A, B, C, and D. And just further clarification there in items B, 2 and 3, making it clear that the purchaser should limit purchases to these items and obtain the best pricing. Those kind of ideas obviously need to come after the authorization. So what you have is a policy with that chain of command, if you will, with, I think, clarity, with the legal parameters covered, and it does add that resolution component. And otherwise, it's what you saw at the last meeting, and just be glad to open that up for any discussion.
Right, comments and questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
so as it stands right now, Mr. Matter,
go ahead.
Mr. Matter, we don't have, there's no set amount, dollar amount, correct?
There is no dollar amount, and again, I'm not sure if I made it clear enough the last time. Generally speaking, what's going to happen in an emergency situation, if it's under 25,000, it's not coming to the board anyway. We're going to be working internally trying to find a place to be able to pay for that. Now there's a caveat if it's not paid. I mean, if there's nothing in the budget and it's 10,000, that's a extra little wrinkle to that. But these aren't going to be smaller items that we're regularly bringing before you. This is intended for, and again, I keep going back to that water heater, the boiler example with the sheriff's office, an immediate need, and at least staff felt like there wasn't really time for emergency meeting. And so that's really how we discovered the lack of having an emergency personnel policy, because when I was reviewing that, it was just clear it wasn't there. And upon some investigation, found out, well, we've had that in the past. It just didn't make it to the latest policy.
Yeah. Oh, I know what you're saying, that there's not an amount.
Mm-hmm.
I've had 3 old commissioners that probably knew more than all of us put together that all said there was. Second thing is your example of the boiler.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly what would you have done if you weren't able to do anything? Like you couldn't make this decision. You would have had to move them, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't look.
Had to move the prisoners. Was that the emergency?
Well, right, we would have had to make other
Okay,
arrangements.
so they didn't do anything the rest of that night. So did you move the prisoners in that situation?
No, because it wasn't a clear no heat, no hot water example. It wasn't, I mean, it was dire, meaning it needed to be addressed immediately, but it wasn't, for instance,
What did they
it
do?
wasn't, for instance, like it did flood some offices there, but it wasn't a situation where it flooded where the inmates' areas are.
I think, and Tim alluded to,
So,
Mr. Yarborough alluded to this other meeting, is that you probably wouldn't have got anything done anyhow that night, and they would have had to move the prisoners. I just have a hard time putting this kind of money out here where you can decide without talking to us. I know we can get together and we can get together quick. And I don't particularly feel comfortable with that. Why you wanting this so bad, I don't know. But it is not for emergencies. Like, I mean, there's a phone call and you right now you can call Mr. Yarborough, then you can go to Mr. Rose. I guarantee you he can get us together. They don't have to give us off.
well,
Four was four.
let me be clear. This doesn't benefit me in any way. It just has, I think with certain emergency situations, it provides an option without calling an emergency meeting. If the board doesn't want emergency purchases policy, We don't have to have one. The next time we have an emergency, we could make the best attempt to have an emergency meeting if necessary. It just came to my attention when I needed to make a decision to approve a water heater and work to that end. And I realized I didn't have a mechanism in our purchasing policy to do that without your authority. And the authority doesn't allow for me just, as it currently stands, doesn't allow for me just to call the chair and say, hey, are you good with that? And so that's how this came about, realizing we've had it before. It's disappeared from our policy. I do think it's important to have one. And I think it just gives the county an option in situations. But again, this is at the board's pleasure.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Claggett.
it's just my opinion, but this lacks proper transparency. And as stewards of this county, emergency purchases should require board action first, period.
Mr. Manager, what is the amount now that you're able to spend outside of this emergency policy? There's a certain amount that
Well, 25,000 is the limit
is the limit.
that I need to bring to you if it's budgeted. If it's not a budgeted item, you have a rule that if it's 10,000, we bring it forward to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to set, in my opinion, I think we need to set a limit amount. I've got a number in mind. I do understand when you do have an emergency, sometimes time can be an issue. Sometimes time can be a friend. I think we need to set a certain amount. But once we set that amount, I think if it's something that's going to go over that amount, then I feel like either the manager or the deputy manager needs to reach out to the chair and let the chair make the decision of whether the chair needs to make a special call meeting concerning that. That's kind of how I feel about it, rather than putting a high figure on it. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Have you got a dollar amount in mind?
And I do understand that Mr. Manager said, sometimes emergency situations are costly. I do understand that. I would say 0 to 25. If it's anything going to be over 25,000, I think it needs to reach out to the
That's
chair.
what we have now, isn't it? He has the authority to go to 25.
Do what?
Are you saying another 25?
No, 25.
No, that's what we have now then.
Well, we don't have it set in for the emergency part. So if we set that in place for the emergency part, it would be anything over 25,000. You'd have to reach out to the chair. That's just my input or thoughts.
Okay. Any other comments? Y'all, time to either say yay or nay on whether we're gonna have emergency policy and what's going to be in it, emergency purchasing policy. If we approve this policy as presented with and I'll just defer to Mr. Rose's comments, a cap, so to speak. And if that, whatever you need to money, whatever it is, whatever the emergency is, it's going to exceed that cap. if you or whoever the county manager may be contacts the chair, is the board comfortable with the chair making that decision? Or does the board think that, hey, we want to be kept in the loop as well?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
What I would be comfortable with is the fact that you've got the information and you try to get us together.
Okay,
If you get 4, you have a quorum.
core, exactly.
And there's where I feel comfortable.
Okay,
So
Dan.
Mr. Chair, oh,
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
if I understand correctly, there's no dollar amount set in the policy yet. Is that correct? Or do we already
In-
have a dollar?
you mean in the previous policy or this?
And what you propose?
There's no dollar amount, correct?
Well, my opinion is, Mr. Chair and County Manager, is that we do take this policy here into consideration. And I think Commissioner Rose had mentioned, was it 25,000 that you mentioned?
It'd be a cap, it'd be a max of 25.
And at that, anything over 25, then we have to go through the procedures that are set forth. Is that correct? With contact and accountability?
If it's budgeted and it's over 25, I mean, if it's an item that's not budgeted, 10,000 is the limit that I need to come to you with. And if you prefer not to have this policy altogether, I'll just always approach it as your preference is emergency meetings. And when we have a situation back up to that item A, that I feel like falls in that category of jeopardizing health or safety of the public, or county employees or county facilities, equipment or property. If you'd prefer not to have the policy, we can leave it as it is, and I'll just come to you in those situations or managers after me and request an emergency meeting. And that's going to require 6 hours notice, but that's, if that's brings a comfort level to you, we don't have to have this policy. It's just, we've had it before. I think it makes the county more nimble, but at the end of the day, you got to have a level of trust in who's administering this, and that's your call.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
have we spoken with anybody, and I understand different counties run different, have we spoken to anybody in Alamance or person or whoever to see if they have any type of emergency policy and how that is laid out?
I have not on this one. This one, I felt like was, I have historically been accustomed to having some type of emergency policy, and I would have done that had we not had it in the policy until a year ago. It seemed to me from the policy that we had that it had been an established policy that had worked, or at least that had been accepted as a reasonable policy. So that was the basis. Now, finance officer drafted a lot of this too, and so we went through it together, but it's a little longer, a little more detailed, I think, for the better than the previous policy. But to answer your question, no.
Okay. I guess one last question I did have. Let's go back to, and I guess I'm gonna pull back from a couple months ago when we had the water issue happen. How
Right.
did that play out? Because that was a significant, could have been a significant amount of money that,
Yeah, so something happened in the night, leaked. I came in, maintenance said, we got a real problem. Boiler's leaking. This is one or two main boilers.
no, not the boiler. I meant the water issue we had with the town to where
Oh,
we had to do the stuff with Danville. How did that
Right.
play out?
So,
that
so for that situation, it's a little different because that was technically their problem, the town's problem instead of ours, and we just became the mechanism by the ownership of the line, the trunk line from Danville. So the way that played out, and I wouldn't have called that an emergency the same way. We referenced it as emergency water because in the scheme of how long it took to address that, it was an emergency, but it wasn't like an overnight or in a day or so kind of situation. We've got to have the trigger pulled on this. So the way that played out was the town notified us of the problems, that it wasn't fixable with their filters, and that they were going to enact this emergency water situation. So the reality of that, that took quite a while to pull together because that involved bringing engineers in, lines that had never been used for that purpose. And so probably not the best example for that, even though we called it emergency water.
So basically what you're looking at is in an emergency situation with, if it's left up to the board and we have to call a special meeting, it's that 6-hour window of public.
That is the notice
meetings,
requirement for an
what you-
emergency meeting.
For emergency, it's what's kind of critical. Now, I'm gonna refer to the county attorney. In that instance, as if it's an emergency, do you still have to do that in the event that it's an emergency?
Pursuant to our existing
Right,
ordinances.
on
and
the
policies.
notice of an emergency meeting concerning, let's just say that we had something happen tonight and it's a true emergency that can affect, I'm getting into, I'm trying to think of my words I want to say. It's a true emergency and we have to address it now. Well, if the policy is left up that we have to have a special call meeting to do that, we could have a meeting pretty quick. But if you have to you have to put out notice of that meeting, that, I guess that's what I'm looking at. Does some type of an emergency override that?
No, sir, not as the current policy stands. The 6-hour minimum notice would still apply. Yeah, for a bona fide emergency.
So let me give you just a off the cuff example. Let's say a tornado swings through here and it tears a third of this roof off in the middle of the night. And RD, myself, some of us, we come out and and it's pouring rain and we have a roofing company that says we can get something on it temporarily. And it's going to cost $12,000, but we got to do it right now because we got more rain coming. Well, if it's $12,000, that's over my limit of, if it's not budget, it wasn't budgeted is the other parameter of this. Technically, I've got to bring that forward, correct, to the board for approval. So without a policy, I call the board chair and say, we got an emergency, get a meeting together. Well, we can do it, and I have a lot of faith that you'd be here quickly with that 6-hour notice. But, in the meantime, that roofing vendor is, he's not doing any work because he's not promised any payment yet. So that's just an off-the-cuff example, but that's the kind of thing that's in my mind when I think of what's an emergency that could happen that an emergency meeting is not the best fit for. Is anybody getting killed in this building while it's pouring rain during those hours while we're waiting on the emergency meeting? No, but it's ruining the building. It's more damage. So that goes back to county facilities or other property at significant risk or damage. Now, I think to your question, and this is not a legal answer. This is a clerk answer. The requirement is a 12-hour notice. A 6-hour notice for an emergency meeting. If you got up here and had that meeting in 1 hour, is anything going to happen to the county because we missed that notice requirement? Probably not, Mr. Attorney, but it's outside the open meetings law as far as notices. Is that fair?
The only issue would be if it were challenged by a citizen, and if the county violated the notice statute, then there could be repercussions. But I'd have to do a little more research on that, Mr. County Manager, but that's a fair assessment, but there could be possible implications.
In other words, emergency meetings have happened without the appropriate emergency meeting notice. It's just that if you don't have a policy to deal with it, you run that risk, and that can be a calculated risk of not having a policy, but that's the best answer I have for that situation.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could the emergency policy be basically identifying the chain of command without any dollar amounts?
That's the way I've got it structured, if I'm
Okay, so
understanding your
basically we can
question.
have a policy without really making any changes. We'll have a policy. If we just identify the chain of command, the county manager,
Right.
deputy county manager, chair,
So-
vice chair.
So play that out back to I keep going back to this almost $50,000 water boiler failure. So if this policy were in place, I would have simply made that decision. If I felt it met all the parameters, I would have said, yes, we get the water heater, get it fixed. And then I would have notified you. And then at the next meeting, you would have passed a resolution authorizing that or really approving that after the fact, but you would have delegated that authority to me. So same situation. I can't be reached and it's an emergency. So our deputy manager would have been called and she would have had the same question or decision to make in that situation. Let's say she couldn't be reached. Then our board chair would be called, and then if he wasn't available, the vice chair would be called. And that's the intent of this policy and I understood that is kind of the order that I understood from you at the last meeting that you would like to see, as opposed to department heads having any authority to make those decisions.
I would think that I wouldn't have any problem with increasing your amount of money that you can spend in an emergency case from 10,000, say, to 25,000. Then if it's over 25,000, then you go right down the chain of command. I mean, you're not going to know what it's going to cost. You're not going to know. You might know, get an idea of what's going to.
Yeah, a lot of times, no. But there are times, for instance, in that situation, we quickly had a quote for roughly 48,000. We had some ancillary hookup cost and cost of a couple of thousands. So I remember first opportunity I got to report it to you. I said, this is about a $50,000 project. Thankfully, that was covered by insurance, but that's beside the point. So again, this was just a policy that I think makes the county more nimble in emergency situations, hoping those instances are few and far between. But if you're not comfortable with it, we don't have to have a policy at all. We can just come to you for emergency meetings.
You don't feel comfortable with this. One is you're talking about trying to make a snap decision right then, middle of the night, just like, you're talking about the roof getting tore off. Well, you're gonna need inspections to come look at this in the daylight and see if you have a life safety issue before they get up there. So, I mean, there you go right there. You don't have a background in construction that I know of. And you making snap decisions as 40, 50,000, $100,000 in the middle of the night. I just can't go along with it. You're not qualified to do that.
Right, and understood. My example of that was not that we get a vendor for a permanent roof in the middle, but it was, hey, we've got a roofer, he's got to get a crane and he's going to get it sufficiently tarped in some way, and it's probably going to cost 15 grand. It's more my example.
Say, look, this is what's going to happen. I got 10,000 right now. You can start mobilizing. And I'll see if I can get the rest by morning.
That's an option in that situation.
Any other comments, questions? What's a pleasure? Buddy boy. Do I hear a motion? All right, Mr. Whitaker, we'll move on. Oath of office for our deputy clerk. Ms. Williams,
So we're gonna,
you will be administering, I'm taking, Mr. Whitaker. You will
we're,
be administering the oath.
we're gonna come up to the podium and I was going to swear her in, but I wanted to cover this briefly with you. If you'll give me just a second to get to that one. So technically, I could have sworn her in as a deputy manager with a witness and not brought the issue before the board, but the reason I did was because you appointed me as the clerk. You also, as part of the budget process, budgeted for a deputy clerk position. And as I explained in the agenda packet, there are some advantages. Sometimes deputy clerks are sworn, sometimes they're not. Counties handle that differently. An advantages of that is it really covers those legal formalities back to mitigating risk, I think, right, Mr. Attorney? In reference to some of those clerk duties, which posting agendas, certifying documents, if I weren't available, administering oaths to, let's say, the Board of Health, for example, or so. The reason I put it on the agenda is just to, in essence, get your blessing and make sure that you approve of this approach of having a sworn deputy clerk.
We have a motion that we allow Mr. Whitaker to administer oath of office for the deputy clerk.
So moved.
Have a motion from Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second from Commissioner Ingram. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
is this a responsibility shift?
A responsibility
Shift.
shift. I would say it's an intended just fulfillment of a position. So again, the position was budgeted. My understanding was with the intent to have and it was called deputy clerk, with the intention of that position being assistance to myself as the clerk and related admin administrative needs. So it's not an overall shift away from me being the official clerk, but it is it's assistance with those duties. Does that answer your question?
Sort of. So right now, the deputy clerk reports to you,
Correct.
not to us. And this position was originally budgeted.
It was. And the position is to
This
support
swearing
this.
in is just a matter of the deputy clerk being in to step in for you if required.
That is part of it, yes.
And that means that the deputy clerk would have the same responsibilities as the clerk.
From a legal standpoint, sworn deputy would have more technical authority than an unsworn deputy clerk.
Thank
Is
you.
that a fair way to say that, Mr. Attorney?
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, let me know by saying aye. All those opposed?
No,
6. No, okay, 5-2. All right. Ms. Williams, if you will come up, please.
So if you will raise your right hand and repeat it. I, Stephanie Williams,
I, Stephanie Williams,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain the Constitution
that I will support and maintain the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of my office as the Deputy Clerk to the Caswell County Board of Commissioners.
as my office as the Deputy Clerk of the Caswell County Board of Commissioners.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
All right, updates and reports. We'll start with you, Mr. Manager.
We had talked recently about planned date for joint meeting with the Board of Education. And we had provided 3 dates that had been vetted by the board, and the board got back with us, the Board of Education today, and said that they would prefer Tuesday, January the 13th at 6 p.m. So that's next Tuesday, and that is at the library. And again, this would be a special call meeting, so we would notice that. And just making sure that that date is still firm and good for you for a special call meeting before we advertise it.
You get a date and time again? Date and time again.
Tuesday, January 13th, 6 p.m. at the library.
It's a week from tomorrow, correct? Yes. Yep.
Correct.
That good with everybody? You be there? Would appreciate it if you could attend.
Okay. And with solid waste, we had talked a few months back in relation to the landfill and its PFAS results. And we had talked at the time about the plan for that. And we don't have an option on this. We need to do what the state and DEQ needs us to do with this. And we're under contract with our engineers, our longtime engineers in that field. S&ME is the firm out of Greensboro. And that's specifically for containment, assessment, and corrective action. And just letting you know that that initial part of that work, the survey has been turned in and accepted by the state. The work plan that I mentioned at the time is being reviewed. And so they're trying to pick those well locations. If you'll remember, you asked how many wells and where exactly we would be. And we had that up on the screen and talked through some of that. So making progress on that. And our engineers do have a meeting scheduled soon with DEQ. And it's already been brought up about the Department of Labor and the OSHA meeting that we have in the morning. And again, echoing the board's thanks to our safety committee and the subcommittee for all their hard work on this manual. Good example of turning smart and capable people employees loose to do really great work. And that meeting is in the morning. Our goal was simply to go and present our case of everything that's been done, how seriously the safety violations were taken when they happened, how that was, how those specifics were addressed immediately or almost immediately when on some of the harder items, and moving forward to, we'll be telling them in the morning that you passed the safety manual, safety and health manual this evening, and that you've been very supportive of our safety efforts. So that is in the morning. We'll keep you posted about the outcome. And the last item I have is I recently met with our historical association, not the full group, but representation of that, and asked them to explore looking for grants and funding to improve the old jail directly behind this courthouse that has no longer been on tour, if you will, because of its condition. And they seemed excited to be looking into some of those funding opportunities. And of course, anything that would involve county dollars, we would, or any kind of authorization would be bringing back before the board. But again, that's just an initial meeting to talk through that. And that's all I have this evening.
Mr. Chairman.
Good.
Mr. Manager,
Yes.
just one quick clarification, just for the ones here tonight and the ones watching at home. When you brought up about the solid waste with the wells, that is something we're having to comply with state concerning these wells that have to be drilled, correct?
It is, and just real quickly, so generally when a landfill is closed, that is unlined like ours, there's a monitoring season a long season of about 30 years. And what in general has happened across the state is that those numbers for PFAS have been outside the parameter in a lot of areas. So this affects 70 some of the 100 counties, I believe. And so DEQ is really reassessing what happens next. And so we were right at the tail end this year when we thought we were going to be past some of that monitoring. Those results were a little higher in places. So basically the state has said, well, you, like a lot of other counties, Caswell, are in a situation where we're going to have to do some extra monitoring, and it's going to involve digging some wells. That probably looks like about 3 wells, but that's to be determined. And some of these wells are in areas that aren't necessarily easy to get to because, of course, they're designed or placed strategically to be able to monitor appropriately. So that's what the engineers are figuring out, and we'll bring that back to you.
So they will bring us a plan of action on how they.
Yeah, and what I had said at the time when we started this work with the engineers is this is going to take several months. And as far as digging any new monitoring wells for that, it's most likely going to be in the summer or into the next budget. So don't have any numbers, anything to give you yet, just giving you an update that that engineering work and the work plan's progressing.
Okay, thank you. I just want to have some clarification for the public that, this was just not something we were looking at doing, that
Right.
our feet are being held to the fire concerning this. So thank you.
Mr. Fuqua, did you have something to add?
But it's all depending on what the state says. PFAS is something new the state started testing years ago. Some of the landfills got their letter last year, some got them in the fall of last year, some got them in the spring. We got ours in the fall. So it's all depending on what DEQ wants to do with the work plans. But estimating we're not the only landfill they're taking care of. So they're going to have several conversations, teams meetings with DEQ, and keep me informed of which direction. But we should have some sort of number to go by the first or mid of March, so we can get it on the budget to know exactly how many wells we're going to put in, how much work it'll be to get the roads to the wells, how much it'll cost to drill it. We're still looking in between 3 and 5 wells.
And just for the clarification for the public, when I say PFAS, think of, you may have heard the term forever chemicals. It's a little generalization there, but it's chemicals that are going to be here long after we are.
All right. Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As it was mentioned previously, the county does have our meeting in front of OSHA tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. in Winston-Salem. I do plan to be present with our county manager, deputy manager, and 2 of our department heads, and we look forward to presenting the county's case to the Department of Labor. I also continue to review contracts and agreements on behalf of the county, the most recent of which is lease agreement with Carolina Enhancement Services LLC. They're a current tenant at the Guilford Mills building here in Yanceyville. So we're currently reviewing and updating that lease agreement along with the EMS billing contract, billing services agreement with the EMS management and consultants. And they handle the county's billing, bill processing, and fee collection services. So we're updating this agreement as well. And as it relates to the county tax foreclosures, we have 7 pending civil actions here in Caswell County District Court. And I'll have more updates for you in the closed session.
All right, thank you. Commissioner comments. I'll start with you, Mr. Holt.
No.
Ms. Totten,
No, sir.
Mr. Smith.
Yes, sir, Scott. Can you give us a targeted date is when you anticipate the auditors coming in for the 25 fiscal year?
For the auditors,
Auditors, when are the auditors will come in, March, February, or we on track for them to come in to wrap up the books for 25?
well, so our contract, if you'll remember, is that they will have it done by February the 28th, but I think our finance office probably has a better idea of when they will be here.
Well, specifically when they'll be here, I don't have a date up yet. But what I can tell you is just as of today, the auditors have reached out and have provided us access to what I'll say our FY 25 audit organizer, which basically is a platform that both Caswell Finance and the auditors will utilize to track action items and target deadlines. With that said, finance has completed many action items, and they are ready for audit review. But we intended for our next meeting, our next Board of Commissioner meetings, to have the document that shows where we are, our status, a status update. I think it's a document you all are familiar with, what has been accomplished, what's on target, what's still pending, that sort of thing. And hopefully by then we'll have all the necessary dates that you all are interested in.
Correct. I don't need to remind you that we have a window of opportunity for our auditors to come in. So we want to try to be ready so they won't have to pull off again and go to another county and leave us hanging for another 6 months plus. So the other thing I wanted to do is thank this board for coming together as a group and making some critical decisions to move our county forward this year. I think we made major strides in economic development. The finance department had some critical hires and had a great year.
Commissioner Rose,
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Ingram. Commissioner Claggett.
No.
All right. Announcements of upcoming events. January the 19th, county offices will be closed in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Board of Adjustment meets on the 20th. Also, the Library Advisory Board will meet on the 20th. Also on the 20th, we will meet right here, a Tuesday night, because the holiday, MLK Day, on the 19th. And the 24th, we will be having our retreat at Gun Memorial Library at 8:30 a.m. Please make every effort to be there. Closed session to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11 subsection A3. Do I have a motion to go into closed session? Motion from Commissioner Smith, second from Commissioner Rose. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We now sit in closed session.